Recently, Asmongold talked about on his stream about how the Final Fantasy XIV community can be a little bad at taking criticism. I'm actually just going to play that clip now.
Like, the only reason I worry about playing Final Fantasy XIV, this is like one thing, right, is that I know that the community is like so like they're so emotionally like attached to it that like I feel like if you make a criticism towards the game, they'll freak out at you. It's like, for example, with Final Fantasy players, you say something bad about their game, they'll get mad at you. If you say something bad about WoW to a WoW player, they'll agree with you. And so it's just like a completely different dynamic.
So that clip, I think, definitely has some level of truth to it. And I want to really talk about that in detail in this video. And so I'm going to be kind of breaking it down into a few different sections because I know that this is probably going to be a little bit longer. I'm hoping that's only 10 minutes, but it might get a little longer. So the first thing is that criticism is important to the improvement of both games, content creation, whatever. Feedback's important. And then my second point is going to be talking about my own experiences with giving criticism in the Final Fantasy XIV community. And then my third point, which maybe it should be my first, I've been kind of waffling on it, is talking about how the Final Fantasy XIV community can sometimes be very unpleasant towards World of Warcraft players, or almost scared of them at times, just a little unpleasant. So the first one is about criticism, and criticism is going to be my first point of this video because I think that this is going to be the most important takeaway. Criticism takes effort. Criticism is showing some level of care for your product, for your content, for whatever you have. I think that the saying that silence is death is a very important one. I don't even know how common that is, but you know what, in my family that is a very common thing to say, at least. Silence is death, where basically if you are getting nothing, you have nothing you can work with. There's nothing that you could really learn from when you're in just this like chamber of complete silence. And so I think that it's very important in the gaming community, and especially for the community as well as the developers, to realize that people aren't making criticisms towards a product because they want to hate on it. I think that, yeah, maybe there is a few people that really get their whatever's from it, like joy or kicks. I think that there are some, but I think for the incredible majority of people, that when someone takes the time to initiate feedback, that actually takes effort. That actually takes way more effort than just walking away. And that when someone is raising a concern about something like Final Fantasy XIV, that doesn't come from a place of hating Final Fantasy XIV. Or like World of Warcraft. Like, take Asmongold's old videos where he would kind of honestly roast World of Warcraft. Those videos, I genuinely do not believe came from a place of animosity. I think that they came from a place of, I really love this game. I really care about how this game's gonna go into the future. I see issues, and I'm getting frustrated that no one is taking the time to actually address these issues, and that this is incredibly frustrating to me as someone that cares about this game, who creates content about it and its longevity. And so he made criticisms towards it. And I think that a lot of people, even back then, took this out of context and just was like, oh, he's just a hater. And I think that that's what you get in a lot of games scenarios where you are trying to issue some criticism towards the game, or whatever it is, even content creation like me on my videos. So I'm going to share an example from relatively recently where I was invited to a test of a game. It was under NDA, so likewise no details will be shared, and no, it's not Ashes of Creation. I know people are like, oh, you've been talking about Ashes of Creation, you be loving that game, and absolutely, you can expect a few videos in the future about it, but it's not that one. And so this game, I tried out for a few hours, and I was trying so hard to make it work. I was just like, you know what, I'm going to play this and that and that and that's, obviously, because of NDA, I can't be specific. And then I spent like an hour writing a feedback post. And I remember that when I posted that feedback, that I phrased it as constructively as I could. I even had a mushy paragraph at the start where I'm just like, you know what, this comes from a place of love and like wanting to see this game succeed, and out of respect, because you know what, someone invited me to this and I'm so honored and privileged to be here. And so I spent the time to give this feedback back out of pure respect, because I easily could have left. In fact, I kind of regret not doing that based on what I'm about to say. I was basically put on blast. I was roasted. I was called a troll. I was called, oh, you're just inflammatory, or oh, you just don't understand this. And I was like, okay, well, I regret that. And I think that that is a certain mentality that comes with criticism. It's just like, you know what, it would have been so much easier if I just left than if I provided feedback. I could have easily saved over an hour of my time and then checking back on the comments, so maybe even longer than that. And it was so disheartening just seeing the level of defensiveness and the unwillingness to change, because my personal thoughts and opinions was that feedback was very important in order to get that game into a state that I think that would have been acceptable. My personal thoughts and feelings and opinions. And again, I'm saying absolutely no details, but I was just met with so much hate from it. And I think that when it comes to criticism, that it's, yes, some criticism can be phrased in a way that could be less kind than you might hope for. But you know what? I can tell you, as someone who has held software dev positions in the past, as someone who is now a content creator, as someone who has been through the rigors of university, and feedback is important. And it's just like, not all feedback that you get is gonna be happy. Not all feedback you get is gonna be singing your praises. It's just like, I'm taking some of my highest level math courses that I took at university, and you really think that when I got my rear handed to me through some of those exams that my feedback was nice? No, they circled my wrong equations, and they were just like, this isn't how you combine linear algebra and calculus in order to do this weird, it was like an AI course, for the record. It was interesting, but they just circle the math incorrection and be like, this isn't how you do it, check this page, or check this page. It was very curt, very terse. And then I even look at my channel, and then some of my best comments that I've gotten that have pushed me further are scathing. They're not nice. Like, some of my earliest criticisms were, oh, your music volume is way louder than your voice, or wow, you really need to work on your plosives, or wow, your enunciation is really weird. And it's just like, are you French Canadian? And I'm like, oh. But basically, the thing is, out of that criticism, even though it's not phrased in the mushy, ooey gooey safe space way that we might like it, it's still something that you can work with. Because you know what? It's kind of like, is it sifting? Yeah, sifting for gold. You're going to get a whole lot of crap through it. You're going to get stuff that you're just like, ew, why would I want to deal with this? I don't want to deal with this. Yuck. And then you want to hurl it out. But you know what? There is in that, when you sift through it, that nugget of truth. And it's just like, you know what? This gold here, I'm going to take this gold and I'm going to apply it to everything that I do from now on. And likewise, I think that that is important, whether you are a game developer, whether you are a student at university, whether you are an employee at work, whether you are a content creator, to be able to take this. It doesn't matter if you are professional, I hate that word, but if you care about something, you need to develop the skill where you take criticism and you make it work. And I'm just going to cycle back to what I said earlier, is silence is death. If I didn't get those comments, if the people that left those comments didn't take the time to leave those comments, I would not have known. I would have not stepped up my game. And I'm just gonna be honest, I am such a new content creator that I've been doing this seriously for what, like 7 months or something like that? About 7 or something like that. And it's like, I would have never gotten my Summoner Ultimate Guide out, which is arguably what put me on the map. I would have never gotten that out to the level that I did if it wasn't for those comments, if it wasn't for taking the criticism. And so when people issue criticism towards a game, it doesn't come from a place of hating it. Because you know what, if someone hates something, they're just not going to deal with it. They're not going to do it. They're just going to walk away from it. I mean, of course there are instances like, you know what, Anthem, on the subreddit, oh my gosh, there were absolutely hate posts. And I think that comes from the difference between general discouragement, it being a big name in the news. I think that there are a whole lot of sociocultural factors that I am not an expert in, and I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert in, but I think that there were a lot more factors in that, and that game being bashed into the ground for fun, basically, by some people, than when you are talking about someone issuing criticism towards a very specific mechanic in a game that they clearly play. And that is going to lead me into my next point, which is criticism in Final Fantasy XIV. And this is actually what Asmongold was talking about. Final Fantasy XIV is a fantastic game. I make content on it and even only started this channel because, honestly, I want to give back to a community that gave me so much hope. Because you know what? I have been through so many mental health issues. You know what? I have been very, very, very open about my mental health. I've been open about the struggles in my past. I've been open about how I'm a victim of the big R, the R that I can't say in my video because it could demonetize my entire channel. But many years ago, for those who don't know, I was R'd, and it was a heartbreaking situation. And that person took it further than that, and they ended up slandering my name throughout the gay community in my city. And likewise, I have obviously no proof of it, but I'm pretty sure that led to many job hardships. It led to me being physically attacked in real life, and likewise I have flashbacks and PTSD. And circling back to the point, it's like, I never got into this to become a big name. I never got into this to become some massive money-making guru or whatever. You know what? If I wanted to do that, I'd pursue some different line of work. But what I'm saying here is that I value integrity over like all else. And you know what? When I see something that bothers me, I'm gonna make some video on it, because I think that is kind of what my community is mostly built off of, is just the level of trust and integrity. Because I think that, especially with content creation, you see a lot of people who put on a mask, and then years, well, maybe not even that long, but maybe weeks, maybe months later, maybe years later, that mask falls off, and they're just like, whoa, who's this person? And I don't want to do that. Like, so for me, I really value this integrity component. And so I have made many videos criticizing various aspects of Final Fantasy XIV. And this is not, cycling back to the first point of this video, this is from a place of love. I love this game, and I am here making content because this game has helped me through those situations that I have talked about in the past, where, honestly, I don't know if this game wasn't around, if I'd even be around myself. Dramatic, but you know what, I'm being blunt with you. But it's like, I owe this community so much for all the love. But when I make a video concerned about, like, let's pick up particular examples. Like, some of my recent videos are Shadowbringers Relic Greatly Worries Me, where I got 13 dislikes on it. And as a super small content creator who honestly, I've kind of sucked at uploading lately. Too Long Didn't Read version is I was laid off of my job and I have hit burnout, and I've been going through a rough time, but I'm gonna get back on it. but uploading irregularly, being small, really didn't work in my favor. But 13 dislikes on this video is a very high ratio for my channel, very high. And basically that criticism came from a place of love, and even though it really did, because I want to do the relic line, I want to enjoy it, I want to do that content because I have done that every single expansion year after year after year. That is some of my favorite content to ever do. That video clearly was met with some degree of not wanting criticism, which is what Asmongold raised in this video. Then I take the video Warrior Needs Help, it's busted right now, and this one has likewise only an 89% like to dislike ratio, which you might think is not too bad, but you know what, for my channel that's actually pretty bad. So that also got a few different comments. Some of them were actually caught in the comment filter, because apparently YouTube has a family friendly content filter now that automatically filters, and I'm like, ugh, some of these comments are really nasty. I don't delete comments for the absolute record, just saying, but YouTube, if you're like swearing a whole lot in them, is going to be like, this comment has potentially inappropriate content, so we filtered it for you. I am learning brand new things about YouTube Studio that I haven't never heard before in my life lately. But my point is that those videos on criticism were met with some degree of not being liked. And I think, though, that taking it super seriously is that I think that, yes, there is a minority of the community that absolutely under no circumstance wants to hear any criticism, but I think for the majority of the community that they're open to it. But the difference is, and let me be super clear about this, that you need to present your argument side by side by facts. Don't be going, oh, I don't like this and that, and this is trash and that is trash. No, you need to provide some evidence, because no one likes the wishy-washy, hand-wavy nonsense. No one has time for that. But I think that the portion of the community that you really should be scared about, that absolutely will define anything to the teeth, is not as large as we'd like to think it is, or as some people might fear it is. It might be the better way to put it. I think that the majority of the community is very open to criticism, and that they can see that, you know, criticism is coming from a place of wanting to see things improve. So that kind of gets into a flip side, where I think that there is some criticism that is easier to hear and more widely accepted than other forms of criticism. And I think that this is something that doesn't impact me, but you know what, talking to so many people in the community, it does impact particularly our absolute bleeding edge hardcore raiders. Like, we're not talking about the people that are clearing Eden whatever 1 through 8 every week in normal mode. We're not even talking about the ones clearing 5 through 8 in Savage. We're talking about the ultimate tier raiders, and they have raised criticisms that they don't have much content, which is fair, because currently we only have 3 ultimate tier raids. We have the Ultimate Weapon Refrain, Ultimate Coil of Bahamut, and the Epic of Alexander. And so these are very intense fights, to say the least. I have tried them in the past, and when I was working full time, which was how things were, I was like, I do not have the time to do this. I want to do it. I really want to do it, but you know what? I just can't put in that level of hours into it. It's just not a thing for me. And so likewise, a lot of working parents, a lot of people who just don't have that level of time, they are just like, oh, ultimate content, I can't do that. But I think that that criticism is one that has largely gone unheard. But again, that is not a argument for me to make, because it's content that, while I am looking at ramping up and getting a group together to start doing it myself, I'm not the right person to say it. All I can do is be a soundboard and say that, hey, this is an argument that people are making that should concern more people. On the flip side, more arguments, like, let's take And for anyone who is newer here, which by newer I mean like if you're here after I got 200 subs, you probably haven't seen these videos, but I made a ton of different videos on the housing system really early on, because housing is a system that I really like. And it's something that has actually caused a good bit of a stir in the community, because say, this is kind of getting into my third point that I'll get into later, but you have a lot of players coming from like World of Warcraft, Black Desert Online, you have some coming from private servers in Lineage 2. All these players, well, not all of them, but a lot of them share the same desire that, oh, this game has a really cool housing system, and my guild wants its own house that we could call our own, because World of Warcraft doesn't really have anything that's really equivalent. They don't have a place that you can really call your own, that you can like bunker down in and like customize all these things and have like a top story floor and then your own custom room and then your outside exterior that you decorated. And so they find it like the coolest thing they've ever seen. And then the housing system, they get immediately smacked against the wall where it's like, haha, we actually don't have any houses available. And so I have been incredibly critical of that system. And I come from a place of, I mean, people are going to cringe when I say it, but from a place of privilege in this, because I already have a large and a medium on Gilgamesh. And instantly I probably lost about 50 subscribers, because that is how sensitive a topic that is. And I'm not even joking with you. I will literally look back at my sub count and I will see it drop by 50. But that's the truth. I come from a place of fortunate privilege on that, and even now I am acting as a voice saying we still don't have enough of a fix to this, and this is a system that I've criticized widely. And I even recently, I think it was maybe a month or two ago, made a video where I went through the entire data center, which was the data center because I might have people who never played 14. So we have individual servers for our game. Likewise, the same as every other game has individual servers. So I am on one called Gilgamesh, which this is a part of a data center called Aether. This data center you can think about as like a super server. So I'm on Gilgamesh, but there also is Cactor, there's Fairy, there's Adamantoise, there's Midgardsmere, and some other server name that I forget the name of. Sorry, I am gonna, if you want to correct me, let me know in the comment section down below. God, I'm gonna get canceled for that one, I'm so sorry. But basically, all these servers are combined together in like a super server, where I can go from Gilgamesh to Adamantoise at any time that I want. Or I can go from Gilgamesh to Genova at any time. Ha! Got that one. See, Genova, I remember you. Damn, did I make it worse? But basically, this allows you to move around freely from server to server, which is a very unique feature. I think that it's annoying in other games. I'm just gonna say, it is painfully annoying when you have friends on a different server and then it's like, oh, but I got a server transfer, and then Blizzard's like, cha-ching, more money in the cash shop. Trust me, that's a video all on its own. That might even be a series of videos all on its own. I hate that. But what you have is basically, I made a video comparing all of the different housing systems there. I compiled statistics, ran the numbers, had a few equations in there, and basically showed it's almost hopeless to get it. And that video with criticism got a 95% like ratio. So I think that definitely some players are definitely adverse to criticism, but I definitely think that there is a good portion of players that are more open to having a discussion about things. And so I think that this is a bit of a case of generalization, and I think that the unfortunately very vocal and ironically in and of itself toxic community is small. I don't want to say that, but you know what, when you have a game with, I think, what was it, they announced like 2 million registered accounts or something, don't quote me on it, but I think it was 2 million. That is pretty darn good, and that's a lot of people. But don't tell me, and like, let's make fun of Lady Gaga's quote, because everyone seems to like to do that. But it's like, if you have 100 people in the room and only one believes in you, the other 99 think that you're terrible and that you smell like elderberries Or your mother smells mother smells a builder. Sorry, I cannot right now. I am so tired. But basically, yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I think that, like, while it is very easy to focus on some of these more angry, toxic players, that I don't think that they make the majority of things. I think that it's very easy to get lost in the overwhelming booming voice of them, but I think that mostly, as long as you are genuine, as long as you are authentic, and as long as you prove your point, that you should be good. And this leads into kind of my last point about how World of Warcraft players can sometimes be looked at with a little bit of animosity from some members in the 14 community. And I want to parallel what I just said, is this is absolutely not all of the players. This is guaranteed not all of the players. I personally played World of Warcraft in the past, and I really liked it. Like, this was around Burning Crusade to Wrath of the Lich King, and I remember how, oh, I can't get Frostmourne in game. Well, you know what? I can get it in real life, and you can bet that I am going to use this in my stream setup. I am still working on that. Sorry. But I also have Shadowmourne, but that's packed away. But the fact is, I come from World of Warcraft a long time ago, and mind you, I wasn't around for like Mr. Pandaria. I wasn't there for Warlords of Disappointment. What was it? I know it was WOD. We're gonna go with Warlords of Disappointment. And I wasn't there for Legion. Legion actually seemed really good. I think that that was one time where I kind of actually regretted not going back. But mind you, it turned into BFA. And I mean BFA. But there's been a few videos that Asmongold has seen on his stream that have been 14 related, such as he watches Zeppeli's video where she describes her experience about moving from World of Warcraft to Final Fantasy 14. And this is actually a video of hers that I never saw in the past. And I was actually really shocked. I will use the word shocked with how many parallels she had between her experience moving from one game to another and my own experiences with that. It was it was something that I really kind of wish that I saw before, because I always wondered, like, did anyone else that moved from World of Warcraft to Final Fantasy? I realized that there was a good break, but did they feel the same way I did? And to see that video, it was like, whoa, I'm not alone in this. But I totally digress. But the point that I'm trying to kind of make is, it's just like, a lot of us are not just die-hard Final Fantasy fans. Like, for me, have I played things like Final Fantasy X? Absolutely. Final Fantasy X and 11 and 12 I have played, and honestly, Final Fantasy X with like Yuna doing her dance and the summoning, that was my childhood. That will always be part of my childhood. But that's not why I will like play a game. Like, I remember Final Fantasy 1.0, like, when people talk about, oh, World of Warcraft Classic servers, I'm so excited, my nostalgia. Trust me, if you told me about Final Fantasy 14 1.0 servers, no, I'd be running away in the opposite direction screaming. It would be absolutely like that, why are you running meme? And trust me, I'm running because it was that bad. Like, if you talk about ultimate raids wiping raid teams, let me tell you about flower planters. In fact, I will let you Google and find out the story about those ridiculous planters yourself. But nightmare. But a lot of us aren't just diehard Final Fantasy 14 fans. Some are, absolutely. But like, for me, I mostly come from a background of MMORPGs. Like, I played EverQuest when I was super duper young. I played World of Warcraft 11, I played Ion Online, I played Conquer, I played RF Online, I played Lineage 2, and oh my god, I was such a nightmare of a person back then. But mind you, who wasn't when they were like pre-teen? Don't hold it against me. It was terrible, and I own it. I'm a very different person than, what was it? Oh my god, we're getting on a long time ago. But the point is, like, when I see a comment, and sometimes I get this, not all the time, but sometimes in my videos I'll get a comment saying, oh, World of Warcraft players are the most terrible, horrible people. And you know what, if someone's a World of Warcraft player, I don't want to party with them, I don't want to know them. And I mean, I cringe at saying it, but there does seem to be a level of game xenophobia. And yes, I know xenophobia is a very serious word, but I think that that is like probably the easiest way to phrase it. It's like fear of people that playing World of Warcraft is wordy. It's just like World of Warcraft xenophobia. I think that there is some of that with some of the player base. I think the majority of the players have come from other games, and they're just like, whatever. I think that ironically, in and of itself, it is toxic to just label a bunch of players just saying, oh, you came from World of Warcraft, you must be toxic and horrible, and I hate you, and this is terrible about you, and that's terrible about you. I think that that in and of itself is a pretty toxic way to think. Because, I mean, if they're terrible, why am I not terrible? You know, I can tell you, during Burning Crusade, I was camping people. I was nightmare fuel. I was that wicked little kid that you hear about that, like, trolled people into oblivion. I was horrible. Horrible. And in fact, I used people for gold. Like, I mean, it's a very, very long time ago, and I'm a very changed person, but, you know, I was a nightmare. And so, it's just like, I come from that game, and you know what, I'd like to think that, you know what, I'm not that terrible of a person. I'm that terrible of a person. But what I'm trying to say is, it's just like, it's not the majority of people that even think that. I think that, similar to before, criticism and all this, it's a minority of people. It's just like, do I lose subs whenever I say that? Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I said that earlier in the video. I'm not sure if I did or didn't, but I lose like 50 subs or something like that whenever I mention something slightly controversial. Like when I post that relic video, oh my god, I was bleeding subs. And I mean, people are just like, but you're that small of a content creator, you can't bleed subs. I was bleeding subs relative to myself, I get it. But how to say it, I just, yeah, it's like, ultimately, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I think that overall, that a lot of this fear is overblown. I think that there are certain places that if you post, and I'm not saying where, but I think that there are certain subsections of the community that can be extremely toxic, because I talked earlier on in the video about how I posted the Summoner video. And when I originally posted that to a particular platform, oh my god, I think that it was like 2 likes to like 15 dislikes on that video. And basically bashing me, saying, oh, you're terrible, you're wrong in all these ways. And now that video is what put me even on the map. And like, it's just, some pockets are very, very accessible. But mind you, because they are the very loud minority, they make themselves very accessible. I think the overwhelming majority of players in Final Fantasy XIV are open to having a discussion, that they are open to criticism, that they are very welcoming to other people from other games. It's just like, take me for instance, it's just like people could be like, oh, you're just a dirty World of Warcraft veteran, and I mean, WTF, that's pretty toxic to say, but it's like, I make videos on housing before that I mentioned earlier, because it's like, I have people coming from World of Warcraft that are messaging me being like, I can't get a guild FC house. For the record, we call guilds FCs, or free companies, in 14. Same thing, potato potato. But most people, I think, would agree with that and say like, you know what, that really sucks. It's just like, you know what, these World of Warcraft players are trying to just have a place to call their own in this game, and overwhelmingly the sentiment is supportive towards that. And so I absolutely reject the notion that most 14 players would be like that. Some, oh yeah, but most, hell no. Anyhow, that brings me to basically the end of this video, and I want to just say one thing, because I didn't want to say it at the start, because what a terrible way to start a video. It's like, get to the point already. I've been a fan of Asmongold for years. It's just like, even in my recent announcement video where I'm saying that I'm streaming, I quote him, where he's talking about, you need to be the change you want in your community, and how it provoked me to stream. And I've been watching his content, I don't want to say a decade. My god, it's probably been a while. I don't think it's been quite a decade. It has been many years though. And I even watched his content even when I quit World of Warcraft because I was in university and I was just interested. Like, this was way before I started streaming. And so when I cite him, I swear it's not from a place of like chasing clout. Like, I can tell you, this video, I would be shocked if it had a positive like to dislike ratio. And I mean that. And I would be shocked if I didn't lose at least 50 to 100 subs just from mentioning his name. Like, this is not gonna do me any favors, but it comes right back to what I was saying earlier about integrity and how I really want my platform and my community to be open to conversation, to open to dialogue. And I think that this is such an important conversation to have, and I am glad that he's talking about this on his stream, because I think that this is something that we do need to talk about more. And I think that as we talk about it more, and even though I have a very small voice, I want to add a little bit more to that. And it's so important as a community to be talking about these things, about how we need to be a little bit more receptive to criticism, how we should be open to being able to give ultimate raiders who only do that content more content to deal with, or how we shouldn't be so quick to roast someone who just isn't interested in the story. And I mean, if we're going to be super blunt, A Realm Reborn story did have really good high parts, but you know what? If I was going through A Realm Reborn again, I would probably skip most of the cutscenes too. There were some really good ones though, but for the most part, oh my god. It is nowhere near the level of Heaven's Ward or the level of Shadowbringers. Don't tell me that, because if you're telling a new player, oh, if you're skipping the Realm Reborn story, you're not a real player, I'm sorry. That's nonsense. And anyhow, I am getting way too long, but thank you so much for tuning in, and hopefully this starts to spawn more of a dialogue, and likewise, leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. I genuinely want to hear them, because yeah, I think that this is a ball that we should really start rolling, because I think that there is a level of fear. And I mean, if even Asmongold's willing to come on to his stream and say, like, the 14 community is a little less receptive to criticism, I think that, hey, it's definitely something worth talking about. Anyhow, that is all for this video, and believe me, lots of good things coming up. Ultimate Machinist Guide and the launch of my website. And oh yeah, you heard that right, I am looking so forward to that. It has been consuming so much time. I'm ready to sleep for like a year. But anyhow, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for paying attention, and if you've made it this far, you are an absolute freaking king or queen or whatever awesomeness you want to be. I mean, if you want to be a flying rainbow unicorn that farts out ice cream, go for it. But anyhow, thank you so very much. You are super duper appreciated and awesome, and hope to catch you in the next one.